Hello, Mary Meet. So, I want to discuss a topic that I've heard of quite a few people mention it on occult forums of various types and so, and that is how people react to the word witch. Because, I live in Norway and we are pretty liberal, and I have pretty liberal friends, and so on and so forth. So, no problem there. When I say that I'm pagan, people say, oh, okay, no problem there. I yeah, I guess when I was a teenager, there were a few people that made fun of me for being pagan, but generally speaking, I haven't experienced any sort of discrimination for being pagan. And I'm really, really lucky because, yeah, I live in Norway, very, very liberal. But when you use the word witch, now, of course, when it comes to my friends, none of them has said anything mean or something like that, but you can see that I say, what the fuck did she say? When I say, no, I'm a witch. But the same when it comes to when you do it on the internet and people that also live other places and such, you get a very different reaction very often if you say, I am a pagan, because then people sort of, oh, well, it's some sort of religion. Then if you say, I'm a witch. And in one way, I find it somewhat odd, but on the other hand, I do understand it, because the word witch have a few distinct meanings that people have a tendency to attribute it to. One meaning is that comes up is, of course, that typical Macbeth witch, the old crone-like woman. It's the same concept that you'll find in The Wizard of Oz, that you'll find in that basically ugly old woman that is harmful to everybody around her. That stereotypical witch character that shows up on Halloween. And the other image people have is basically witch and bitch are interchangeable. It's basically, you can call somebody a bitch, you can call somebody a witch, it doesn't matter, so that people react when you say, I am a witch. Get a bit the same reaction when I say, I'm fat. But you can't say that. I remember it was one of my friends that said, when I said, yeah, these were basically the table. We were placed with the table there, and then you have the row of chairs there. There's a tiny little walkway. So this walkways aren't made for fat ladies. And so, but you can't say that about yourself. Yeah, but it's the truth. I'm fat. It's pretty fact. I'm a fat. I'm pretty. Yeah, that's about it. But it's a thing it has this sort of negative connotation. So when you say it about yourself, people draw back. And I think it's the same thing when it comes to saying witch, because a lot of people have gotten this idea that that word is so negative. It's the same as saying, I'm an asshole. I think it's those two things that have a tendency to rub people the wrong way. But the same really when it comes to magic. If I say I do magic, people look at you like, oh, Looney Bin next. If I say I'm an occultist, then they, oh, interesting. Because when you say I do magic, they think, oh, you think you're stuck in a Harry Potter novel. But when you say I am an occultist, that sort of have a different ring to it. Well, it's saying the exactly same thing. And when it comes to the word witch, I like it. I identify as a chaos magician, but several of the main paradigms I use as a chaos are paganistic witchcraft. So I would say I identify pretty much as a witch. And it's what my husband called me. He calls me his little witch. it's a term that I'm very comfortable with using. But I know that there's a lot of pagans that are sort of afraid to use it because of the reactions they get, and I think that's very negative. I think we should reclaim the word witch and make it something positive. And I don't mean that then you shouldn't, that these, for example, stereotypes and Halloween characters and so on shouldn't be. It's not like we are the only people that are occultists and pagans are the only ones that have the right to the word witch. But I think that we can work to make the religious witch also religious. Well, actually not only religious, there's a lot of witches that have no religion. They're just into the witchcraft part of it. Basically, the witch as a practice, as a practitioner of real-life magic, the witch as a pagan, the witch as a wise woman or wise man, that we should basically make this archetype of witch also something that people think about when they hear that word. And I don't think that the way to do that is to scream and shout every time there's one of these stereotypes being presented, because they are what they are. But I think that by being unafraid and saying, yes, I'm a witch, now let me explain to you what being a witch is. Because from your reaction, I can pretty much tell you that it is not what you think it is. And then explain shortly, so that you don't basically take too much of people's time, what being a witch is to you. I think that by doing that, and writing blogs about it and making videos about it like this one and so on and so forth, together we can actually reclaim that word. And I mean, this has been a part of paganism for quite some time. A lot of people want to reclaim the word witch as something that is positive. That is something that when you say you're a witch, that will one day be as natural as when you say, I'm a Christian, or a follower of any other faith. It's basically something that people say, oh, well, that's interesting. Not something that people react to like if you said you were a leper. But I think that to do that, we can't be afraid to use the term ourselves. Now, a lot of people have chosen, and there's no judgment here, by all means, use whatever term you desire, but a lot of people have decided to not use that term. For example, let me take my mother. She's an occultist. When she opened her business where she do all sorts of nature therapy, there was someone from the local newspaper came and wrote an article about it, and my mom had commented that if this had been 400 years ago, she would probably have been burned at the stake for what she's doing. And this was commented on, that basically 400 years ago she would probably have been burned as a witch. And she was so embarrassed about that, because using that term, that sort of, she completely balked at that. Well, actually, that's exactly what she would be. She uses various natural methods, including energy healing and such, to do good. She sells natural cosmetic things in the form of creams and lotions and such, various forms of herbal things, all of those kinds of things. She is the modern incarnation of the typical old wise woman that was, in fact, a witch. And, I mean, while the term witch has a few different... there's some debate about what it comes from. One of them is wise one. The typical old cunning man or cunning woman, and she would be that. There's nothing wrong with witch. The reason why the word witch has been vilified is Christianity, and its idea that witches worship Satan and sold their souls to Satan and eat babies and so on and so forth. That is what has created this idea around witches. And it's also what has created the negative ideas about that word. And I believe that it's time that we who identify as such reclaim that word, because it is a very positive word. We are the wise ones, or at least we try to be. We might not be wise in and of itself. I'm not going to sit here and claim wisdom, but we try to be wise in the ways of nature, in the ways of the unseen world, to gain these kinds of knowledge. It's so we practice the craft of the wise, witchcraft. So we are witches, and we should accept that term. Or if you go by the Norwegian word for witch, which is hex, which is of course where the word basically it has the same, it comes from the same source as the one of the English words for a spell, a hex, comes from. It's from German, because it comes in with German folk magic. The original term there is Hagasiza, which is Old High German and means fence rider, because it was believed that the witch rode the fence between worlds. He or she had 1 foot in the physical and 1 foot in the spirit world. So it's basically a witch was seen as a shaman of sorts. And that then became hexe, which in Norwegian has become hex. Which is also a very positive, very strong. The word has very strong roots, and I believe it's words that we should use. And of course, that doesn't mean that everybody who is a practitioner of some sort of natural magic will feel that this is a word that applies to them, because there might be other words that they feel more connected to, or they might feel that, like for example, a lot of pagans feel that the magic's part of it completely take over. That's all that people see in it, so they want to distance themselves a bit from it and choose to just use the term pagan. And that is great, awesome. They have found a term that works for them. But I believe that if you feel a connection with the term witch, you shouldn't feel ashamed to use it. Now, of course, I shouldn't sit here and preach, because like I said, I live in very, very liberal Norway, where the worst that are likely to happen if you use the term witch about yourself is that people look at you a bit funny and give you a shrug. But there's many places where if you use that term, you might be physically attacked, you might lose your job, you might have problems with people trying to take your kids, or, there are part of the world where you might get executed. Because remember, witch hunts hasn't ended all over the world. So, you consider your own safety and such. That's not what I mean. If you can celebrate that word without there being any other negative results for you than some social problems, then I think it's positive to be proud of the word witch. But of course, everybody has to do what's right for them, because nobody knows your life like you do and the needs of your life like you do. And do what you want and what you need. What I'm basically saying is you should take the word witch back and use it proudly, because it's a good word for what we do. I hope you have enjoyed this video. Have a great day, and blessed be.